Hi, everybody. You've heard from me a few times over the course of the last day and a half, but I haven't really answered a lot of the questions people have been asking about what exactly does Elliott Capital do? John, what do you do? What's Fintech Plus? How does it all fit together? So really what we wanted to take a few minutes for to start off the afternoon was to give the bigger picture about what I've been doing in the last 2 years since I left Credit Suisse and where it's going in the next little while. Before I do that, this isn't a joke. I get asked this question all the time. I am not Paul Singer, and this is not Elliott Management. Elliott Capital is totally separate. There's no connection to the hedge fund. Elliott's my middle name, so that's where it comes from. The other thing I get asked all the time, and I need to clarify, is we are not a venture capital fund. Capital means more than just money. We have human capital, intellectual capital. There's a few things that we're working with. But we chose capital as the name because we really are bringing resources into entrepreneurs and into companies to help them achieve their success. What we do is pretty straightforward, and it's actually outlined on the little flyer that's at our desk. It basically falls down into 4 buckets over the company lifecycle. It's a little bit nebulous, and it all interconnects because when you're serving the needs of large corporates that are trying to renew themselves, you're actually oftentimes going back to the starting and planning phase, or maybe even working with scale-up companies to help solve their needs. So there's a lot of overlap, but essentially it follows this corporate lifecycle. And really, I mean, it's not that glamorous. It's a consulting firm that I've been working on for the last couple of years. And whether it's writing business plans for a new venture or doing a strategy piece for a corporate, it's some pretty, what I would tend to call unsexy, not too scalable types of things. But that's not why I'm here to talk to you about Elliott Capital. I think what we're trying to do with the business is more interesting. We call it a venture builder not only because we help other people build ventures, but because we ourselves are building ventures along the way. And you see it most under the launch phase, but it's really intrinsic within everything we do. And as we were doing that, we basically hit across an idea. And I'll mention bricks and clicks, and I'll come back to it a bit later. I'm going to talk about the clicks first and then about the bricks. But if I step back and look at what's going on around the world, this is a quote from McKinsey that a lot of people have heard over the last year or two. It's talking about how quickly technology is reshaping what we know as industries into what are being called digital ecosystems. Ecosystems weren't really a word that were used in business a few years ago. It's picked up like crazy, and I still think people fail to understand what it means. But you see some really interesting investments being driven in places like Israel from Eastern investors, and they talk about acquiring finance ecosystems or health ecosystems and how they want to combine their ecosystems. This is really an emerging topic that's not well understood, but that has huge potential in the next 10 years. The point being is corporate leaders need to be ready for that, and certainly not all of them have the resources available. But also we think that there's some value that we can add in that space, providing services to companies and facilitating these types of interactions. That's a bit different. You heard it yesterday, especially with Evangelos. There was even a quote reported in the media. To a certain extent, we're challenging the status quo. In Switzerland, the financial center had a lot of success for many decades, and even with the bursting of the financial crisis, it didn't end the status quo here, which was to prolong the legacy, to continue what we all know so well. We're different. I'm not Swiss. I don't pretend to be. I very much respect all of the wonderful assets we have here, but I think there's a huge opportunity to think about what can we do in the future that's different than what we did in the past. And that's really what Elliott Capital is here to help usher in. You all know the term Fintech Plus as an event. We are sitting here at Fintech Plus, the event. Fintech Plus, though, is really, in my opinion, much more than an event. First and foremost, it's an idea that I've been talking about in recent years. Fintech itself is the combination of finance and technology, and people are very excited about what that has the potential to do. But if you think about how you can add in sustainability, which is a very Swiss value, into that picture, I think you've really got the right starting point to really start to converge industries and to build these types of digital ecosystems. They're going to be tech-enabled. There's going to be finance fueling and the lifeblood of the whole organizations or the ecosystems. And frankly, we've learned through the Industrial Revolution that sustainability can't be forgotten. That's why for us, Fintech Plus isn't just a cute name. It actually means more, and it's actually very Swiss as well. And that's why something else it is for us is it's a new, unique vision for how Switzerland can become a global innovation hub. We hear people all around the world now talking about how can we replicate Silicon Valley. There's a lot of attempts to copy what they've done to make themselves a global destination. And although Switzerland is already a destination for research and development, it really isn't the kind of destination where this open innovation and convergence into digital ecosystems is being led. And we think rather than trying to replicate Silicon Valley or gaze into our souls and try and figure out what to do, this is actually a really exciting opportunity for Switzerland to play a leading role in the future. So much so that I think actually it's worth, not to pick on the Crypto Valley, they've had a tough year, but I think it's been a great example of just how amazing the potential of Switzerland to play a role as a global hub is. In a matter of about 18 months, you saw Crypto Valley being completely exploded onto a global scale. I don't know how many times it was mentioned in the media, but it was definitely a few hundred. It really was something quite amazing. We believe it's not quite as sexy at first, but the long-term potential and the scale of impact that FinTech Plus can have is even bigger than the idea of Crypto Valley. This is the part which I think I'm really building towards. Last but not least, and I'm not going to go into all the nuts and bolts of it, FinTech Plus is a new platform that we're creating. And this is where I want to get back to clicks and bricks. I mentioned that what we do at the core of this is helping customers. The real core of what we've been helping so many with is a lot like what an accelerator does. We help them find customers and we help them raise money. And on the flip side, we help people find solutions and investments. That's something that takes a lot of skill and you need to have a lot of expertise in how to make it work, but it's not very scalable if you're doing it all manually. If I'm just one person trying to facilitate every connection, it's not going to be a very attractive business. And that's why it's been important, and something that we really see as an opportunity to help everyone and create value is to make a platform. It provides a radar for corporates in Switzerland to know what's out there and what's available. They can use it as a sounding board to find innovation. And if you're looking to raise funds, for example, it's a quick and easier way to do it through a platform. It's something that we see not only in our own work, but also you see this in the top companies now. They're not individual service companies doing things manually. They're platforms that scale through this type of efficiency. And that's what you see on the desks as well. FinTech Plus, it's a teaser. It's not something you can click on quite just yet. But I want to talk fundamentally really about what it does. To bring it back to the event, you'll see at the bottom there, events is part of what we do. That's to a certain extent, the bricks part. People physically need to be brought together. These connections don't all happen online. An event like this is really, really critical to bring people together and do business. But the platform itself is really the open platform. People can come online, they can register, they can connect with those who are in the Swiss ecosystem. It's open, it's free, it's a way to bring people together. We've tested this already in large part through the Swiss Finance and Technology Association. We know there's tons of interest from around the world for people to be on the radar and to better connect with the audience in Switzerland. So we see this as a really easy way to start streamlining that process. The core of the business, though, is those two arms on the cross. The funding platform works on the fundraising side, obviously, and the innovation platform is really where we seek to connect solutions with demand. And what's a bit different there that we're doing is, rather than a traditional accelerator which looks out into the world and says what's available and how can we filter it down into stuff that might be successful with our customers, we start with the customers and say, what are you looking for? What are your challenges? What do you need? And then we bring that out to the ecosystem. We either find what's available through our resources and our expertise, or we can actually even tap the network working with investors and with entrepreneurs to help find these solutions or create them. Again, I think this is largely online. The events are quite physical, but that's the clicks part of thing. What we've also noticed time and again is there's no physical place. There's no bricks for FinTech in Switzerland. That's not entirely true. There are a couple of accelerators now. There's an increasing number of co-working spaces in Zurich. I was actually involved in helping to support something called the Impact Hub, which if you've been around, you might have seen. It's great, and it's wonderful to see all these places coming together, but they're not built for purpose for FinTech, which we think is a real shame because Switzerland is a FinTech country. FinTech is one of the hottest areas and largest growth areas, and it has this potential to shape digital ecosystems. It really deserves a space of its own that it can reach its full potential in Switzerland. Moreover, what we see is many of you here today are finding is there's a real interest to enter the market in Switzerland, and it's not always easy to find a place. It's a tough market for real estate. It's also a very expensive market for real estate. And once you've found a place, really all you're getting is location. You're not getting any value added for it. That's what's been so great about Impact Hub. That's where we use our office. There's other entrepreneurs there. They have letterboxes you can rent. There's all the typical things you would get from a co-working space. What's lacking is really that FinTech ecosystem and the overlaying expertise to really make the most of an ecosystem that the location is part of. And I'll just flip through and talk about what we actually offer to showcase that. it is a location. It's a physical office. It's bricks. It's nothing terribly exciting. But when you can anchor an ecosystem into a place like that, you really can bring life to it, and you can add more value to the ecosystem by having a physical location. It's a place to have your events. It's a place to bring people when they're visiting. It's just essential. But what we're really most interested in is, because we have this audience, because we're all in the same place, we can better offer services like legal advice, scouting services, matchmaking. There's a lot of things that we can do specifically for this audience when we can bring them together physically. And actually, we've been working on this for quite a while. I don't know how many of you know the area well, but this building is actually 500 meters from here, right on top of the train station. It's called Andreasturm, and it's the place that we've located on, and we're trying to finish the business case for right now. It's about 1,000 square meters, expandable to 2,000 or 3,000, perfectly modern, super convenient and accessible, not only for local market, but also for those visiting for the day. And what's really interesting in the building itself already is you see discussion about creating co-working spaces, because this is the way things are going. And the tenants who are already occupying it include AI companies, fintech companies, foreign banks, the same sort of collection of groups that we'd like to include in our space. So really, for us, the power of this is not only serving the needs of our own business. We need an office. The clients that we work with are looking for these types of resources. We actually think people can benefit from clustering around that. It's got the center of gravity effect, where if you're a Asian tech company and you're looking to open up a research and development center in Zurich, which has happened recently with Huawei, rather than looking to rent your own office, create a lab, and bring it to life, what you're actually having the option to do with a place like Epicenter is plug right into a shared space where you're going to find collaborators in other companies, you're going to find startups that are bringing solutions that can be relevant for you, and you have these types of services that can enhance what your own team has in terms of capabilities. We think that's relevant not only for small firms that are coming to Switzerland, for big firms that are well established and have all these capabilities themselves too, or if you're somewhere in between, it's a great way to avoid having to build up all these capabilities, which in so many ways are repeated. Everybody's going to conferences, everybody is scouting the ecosystem, everybody is filtering and sorting and trying to find what's right for them. It doesn't always make sense to build up the capabilities like your UBS. And we really think in Switzerland there's a great market to bring efficiency to that by putting it all in one place. I wanted to talk about Alfred Escher just in closing. I think many people are familiar with him from Switzerland. I don't know how many people have seen the statue when they've come out of the main station. I was really impressed to learn about Alfred Escher when I got to Switzerland. He is the creator of so much of what we enjoy here, the railroad system, the top universities, companies like Credit Suisse. He essentially built the infrastructure, the system of modern Switzerland. And really, that's what we're aiming to do with Elliott Capital and the Fintech Plus platform. We believe that there is this potential for a bright future of the financial center, this digital ecosystem around Fintech Plus. But in order to be able to do that, we need a new system in place. We need the types of resources so that the leaders of the future can create these types of capabilities, create these types of resources in Switzerland. And yeah, that's really what Elliott Capital is all about. I ran through that, so I'm way ahead of schedule, but I'd be happy to answer any questions or clarify anything that I've gone over. Also, I'm happy to take some challenges as well. That would be great. Rob.
It seems like there's a lot of these things around. Why a new one? And why can't we pull these together in this small country?
I think that's an ongoing question. Switzerland's very independent, and there's also a lot of different things going on. I really believe also what happened after the end of banking secrecy and this disruption of fintech that came along after that was really the explosion of consensus. Switzerland really operates really well when everybody knows what's happening and they agree and they all know what to do. It's what makes it such a financial powerhouse. It's closed and it's working together. The end of banking secrecy and the turmoil that technology is putting in means that people all have different ideas about what the future is going to entail. I think if you even talk to people like the Swiss Bankers Association or the government, they don't have the answers. I don't think I necessarily have the right answers, but in the role that I've been in the last few years, exploring some of these topics, getting to know what the banks are dealing with, being in the role myself at a bank or in an entrepreneurial setting, you start to get a sense of what works and what doesn't work. I think a lot of what is being seen right now in Switzerland has been a knee-jerk reaction. I hear the term innovation theater thrown around a lot this year. People feel that stuff has been done, but it was done to check a box or to show that we're doing something. It hasn't actually created real value. I think what was a bit different with my experience was I left the bank having seen what was being done and what people were working on. I was aware of things like, for example, the accelerator model, which I think is pretty fundamentally flawed in a lot of ways. And you can look ahead and say, look, Switzerland's trying to figure this out. We're rushing ahead and going to set up 3 accelerators this year. Do we really need 3 accelerators? How does spending $1 million to train 10 companies create value? Isn't there a better way that we could do this? And yeah, that was in a large part what led to this model. We've seen that conferences, when they're done right, can actually have a lot of impact. We know that actually most of the businesses that are being created in any industry that are having real long-term success are platforms, and you have to figure out how to get that right to create a marketplace. It's not easy. And yeah, we know that when we talk to companies, even ones that have finished at the big name accelerators in Switzerland, they're still looking for clients. They're still looking to raise money. There's no resources really to help them once the program's over because you're focused on running a 6-month program and then you have to get the next batch. Yeah, they're still looking for that very simple service of who knows the market, who can understand our business, and who can actually make these connections happen. And as I say, we've gotten to figure that out, but it's not scalable. So that's why we've come to these sort of ideas about how we can explore it. And it's an experiment. I think that's also something that's a bit different for Switzerland. There's not a lot of willingness to try something new, to go out on a limb. And because this is something that can generate its own revenues, it's a lean model with the platform, we can take a bit of a risk and see if we can generate the type of returns we believe are there. Show of hands, who thinks the Fintech Plus platform is a crazy idea? Hang on, let me ask the question first. Who think it's a crazy idea? Foolish idea, not going to work? Hard to say? Undecided? You like the idea? You like the idea, okay. I'm glad to hear you say that. I think that's something, you see it actually with venture capital funds. Peggy mentioned her network, Mike Siegel in Silicon Valley. And something that you see is a lot of the people who've been in these roles, whether it's Sue, myself, Don Ginsel, there's a similar type of activity around creating a community, an ecosystem, helping to connect it internationally, and then figuring out what are the ways that we can do this efficiently and effectively, right? So I think that's the other angle, is we're trying to work with who's in the market and understand Canadian top. We're giving Canada a lot of showtime today. There's a famous Canadian named Wayne Gretzky. He's also very popularly quoted by Steve Jobs. His quote was, "Don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where the puck's going." And I think a lot of what I've seen in the fintech marketplace, especially in Switzerland, is this type of reactionary skate to where the puck is going type of an activity, like creating an accelerator. There's loads of venture capital funds now from the Swiss industry, but they're really doing it because that's where they think they need to go. It's not because they've reflected, they've thought about it, and they see an opportunity that they can be at first and win. And that's really what we've tried to do, is be patient, be a bit under the radar, perhaps take a little bit longer than we thought it would take, but to be in a position where we can actually do something that's going to open up a huge opportunity. So the question was, when you're using the Innovation Challenge platform, how does it actually work, first of all? And then do you see that as creating kind of like people are just gaming the system, right? They're providing solutions because it's what they want, not because it's innovation. Something like that, yeah. So the way it works, and actually there's a couple of models that do something like this on a standalone basis. It's like an innovation challenge. So you talk to a firm and you say, look, we can bring you all sorts of AI solutions. There's 500 in Europe, but what are you actually trying to solve? So it again comes back to actually the hard work of being a person, going to talk to people and understanding what their needs are. So there's always a human element to what we're doing. But once we understand those needs and we can frame them, what we're doing is using our platform to broadcast that to our ecosystem. Rather than calling everybody up, everybody's getting an update. There's a challenge in Switzerland. PostFinance is trying to figure out how AI can limit fraud issues with its payment system or something like that. So we're really targeting in a much more specific way the types of needs. And there are platforms that exist out there. There's one really famous one in the fintech space called Matchy that does exactly that. The big difference, and this is why, again, we're being quite selective and really anchored to Switzerland, is they do it on a global basis, and they've been acquired by KPMG. So they're essentially doing it as an additional service for KPMG customers, and they're all over the place. And what we really believe strongly, or what I really believe in strongly, is I'm in a very lucky position here in Switzerland. It's what I call a demand market for fintech. It's a huge financial center in a tiny little country, and lots of people would love to come here and do business. So that creates a really nice pipeline that we can focus on. And then actually going from that, you've also got a nice niche here with wealth management and to a certain degree insurance, the themes we talked about yesterday, where if you can get something to get critical mass out of Switzerland, you've got a certain leverage where you can start to influence things in other places where wealth management is a big topic. So I mean, for example, in Canada, there's a really nice synergy there with wealth management and insurance, and it would be really nice to see how that develops over the coming years. So the exact prices are to be defined, and there will probably be a little bit of market adjustment over the time. But for example, with fundraising, with everything we work on a success fee, and in cases where there's quite a lot of demand and input in terms of investment of work on our side, there's usually a retainer component. But for example, with the fundraising platform, there's going to be an option where if you just want to use it as a listing service, there'll be a very small flat fee. You can use the platform and get the visibility. If you don't think we add value, it just does what it does and that's it. If you'd like us to do our work but also use our platform to help make us more efficient, we charge a success fee. And then in the last case, if people want us to work behind the scenes without our extra tools to make us more efficient, they pay us the time to do the work, and then we also get the success fee when we're done the work as well. So nothing crazy. What I've heard a lot of feedback from advisors about is, especially around the business development side, where we have a pilot case running right now that Andras can tell you more about. Right now, what most companies offer is either an investment or a POC. There aren't a lot of options in terms of how you might offer a client your services. And there's a belief that we can start to create more of a menu of different types of revenue sharing, fee sharing, profit sharing, and different formulas that can make that easier to implement this stuff. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your interest, and thanks for the feedback.